Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our first edition of Women in Tech Africa, Bytes and Banter. My guest today is Rukayat Akolawole, who will be joining me this evening. This is the first edition of something like this. We thought COVID-19 has been impacting everybody's life. How are people managing it? Because pretty much we're all in the same situation. We might be living it differently, we might be affected differently, but for me, it was interesting. Female leaders and experts in different fields, how are they going about it today? What is their business? What is their core business? How are they working? And how are they adjusting to the current situation that the pandemic basically has put us in today? So before I start this evening, I would just like to give a few housekeeping tips. Please only unmute yourself when we're in the question section. Turn off your camera if possible. This session will be recorded and we will provide the recording to all the people who participated in this event afterwards. So to say a little bit about Women in Tech Africa, this is an organization that has existed since 2014. We are currently present in about 30 countries. Our focus basically is to empower women, to encourage women, to showcase women who are doing great things all over the world, basically. And of course, our focus is on trying to drive that impact in Africa through technology. And we are currently in Germany. We're coming to you live from Germany today. And so I will start with Rukayat. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Rukayat.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, as we've seen from our little bio that we put up about you, you're a chartered financial analyst. That means you are involved in investing, how to invest wisely, and basically right now your startup is also focused on women empowerment, financial empowerment. Can you say a little bit about yourself that our audience doesn't know?
Right. Okay. So basically, my motivation of financial world was from learning about money from both my grandmother and my mother. And most of you know that I grew up in Nigeria, and I remember every Friday before I went to boarding school, and most times during my holidays, I would visit my grandmother in the town. She was a good gold trader. I would often go to Ghana to buy gold and then sell them in Nigeria. And on Friday, she'll put the gold, take them to the bank for safekeeping over the weekend. And in the evening, she would gather around women in the community to talk about their day and about their week and what they've done. And they would then donate lots of money. And they would then give it to a handful of women who needed it most for their specific goals. And this women would then pay back at some point with interest. This was where I understood the basics of empowering women via money and the power of communities. And about my background, I started out in investment banking in Goldman Sachs in London. And I stayed within the financial industry throughout for 14 years till I moved to Germany in 2018 to start my executive MBA at ISEC and Mannheim. And also because I had my daughter, I would decide to raise her in Germany. So right now, I'm an investment coach, financial coach, wealth coach, and advisor, and also I'm building up PaySup as a startup to help women to become financially independent and empowered.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think on your website, you mentioned also that only 10% of the women in Europe invest, despite having 40% less after retirement than men. Why is this so? What have you seen to lead you to this conclusion?
It used to be 40%, but now it's 30%. So they've updated the figures February this year, but I guess with the pandemic.
Yeah,
so I've updated that on my website now. So if you look at the financial sector, it is still very much evidently male in the structures and systems. And while I was in London, I spoke to so many women, carried out surveys, and it became apparent that most women were being left behind when it comes to investing, and literally had to do with financial knowledge and confidence. And also most women identified that investing was only for the wealthy people and not for them. For example, in the UK and Germany, nearly 60% of women defer their investing to their partners and do not learn at all. So regarding the statistics, it was done by Eurostat, and it shows that in Germany, for example, women are paid 21% less than men. Although the EU average is around 15, you can see Germany is like the top. And for France is 60% and the UK is 20%. You can see that there's still a huge gap between what is earned. And because of this lower income, amongst other things, retired women receive a pension, which is on average 37 less than men in Germany. And like I said, it's 30% in Europe, but Germany is still is very much higher than the average. France is parity, 30%, while UK is 34%. Another major problem is that women they largely believe that financial advice and materials, like I said, is geared towards the wealthy people. And if you see, approximately 1 in 5 women and almost a third of divorced women say that financial strategies are for people that have more money than themselves. And this is a major barrier to getting involved. And there's also the gender pay gap that I mentioned, which results in fewer financial assets to start with. And the gap is there due to the imbalance in compensation of mothers in workplace who are forced to decide and work part-time. And because domestic labor is still considered as a no real labor and is mostly unpaid, the person that stays at home faces disadvantages upon retirement. And in vast majority of cases, it is the woman. And also we've seen lots of studies that show that women face difficulties to be promoted after they've had children. And this affects the financial situation of a woman because higher position indicates higher salary and eventually not having enough money for both their short-term and long-term goals. And other segments of women, for example, those that get divorced, they face social stigma after they get divorced. Entrepreneurs are not getting funded. Carers are spending time caring for the elderly and children. And singles as well, in addition to all the other segments I've mentioned, they're lacking confidence to take control of their finances. So this is where all this is coming from, and what I'm trying to do with PaySup, with the team that supported me, is to make sure women are financially independent and empowered so that they don't have to go through poverty when it comes to retirement.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the current COVID-19 pandemic situation right now, which means that this is an additional layer on top now for women, if you look at it from that perspective. Because I mean, for the ones who are not paid, and we're talking about, probably a recession coming up, I feel that there's this fear that whatever I have left now, I need to put it under my pillow or put it under my chair or something, so that at least I still have some money left. So when we just look at the whole disruptor, as I would call it right now, COVID-19 being a disruptor, you had put on your website a picture about who you want to be during this period, right? You said, I think it said, who do I want to be during COVID-19? The fear zone, the learning zone, and the growth zone. Now, can you apply this picture to what you just mentioned, especially with where the women are right now? What sort of advice would you give an entrepreneur woman in that situation right now with relevance to these 3 stages?
So I actually got the diagram from 2 people, and I really, really love who created it because I think it was a very good diagram. And when I got this, I was already in the learning zone and I tried to apply it. So for example, with the schools and nursery closed in Germany, I'm often alone with my 2-year-old during the weekdays. And it is quite challenging as an entrepreneur, managing my coaching clients, as well as looking after my daughter and I. However, my daughter and I, we developed a schedule that we work around. So she knows that mommy is busy and when mommy is not busy, and when it's time to play or not. And obviously at this point in time, it is an extremely emotional and trying period we're all going through. And there's so many information out there that at times can become so overwhelming.
Yes, that's true.
And what I did is I often reach out to my clients and vice versa to make sure they're preserving their emotional liquidity in this crisis, because this is very, very important. I believe the act of reaching out to others can be therapeutic as well. And as their wealth coach, I'm providing much needed emotional comfort, as well as preventing the kind of missteps that might be made in the heat of the moment that could seriously damage their long-term plans. And the thing is, we not only discover or discuss about their portfolio and wealth building, but also how they're feeling in general. And what I do is I tend to encourage them to feel no shame and judgment about how they are feeling, to talk to loved ones and trusted ones, and make sure what they're feeling inside is getting out somehow so that they can protect their mental health. I make sure I practice this as well. And I think this picture actually will benefit most people because it's very, very simple and very, very easy to kind of follow through as well. So that was why I had the picture up, and yeah, it's a very good one, I believe.
Yes. I would encourage our listeners, if you go on to www.paceupinvest.com, you will find this picture on her website. Yeah, so I was just thinking, fine, you have a 2-year-old daughter. I know that people who have maybe older children, the challenge is just different. But have you had situations whereby your daughter was also on a call with you?
Oh, yeah.
And how did that go?
She just wants to press everything, and I'm like, okay, just look and smile. And then she goes, hello, hello. And then in the end, I just say, okay, can you go and play now? And then she goes to play this, and then she comes back again, but she just wants to be seen, like on the video, to look at other people and likes looking at herself. So that's very interesting.
How has the relationship with your clients also been, knowing that you still have your family life, you can't really go out anymore, and you're still working on the side? Have they met you in the middle? Have they been considerate, or has it been a battle working with your clients?
No, it hasn't been a battle. It's been kind of empathetic on both sides, because everyone is kind of on the same boat. We're all at home. Most things are closed, no carers, no nurseries, no schools. So we all have to chip in. So they've been very, very empathetic. And sometimes they bring their own kids as well and just say hello. And yeah, so it's quite nice just to see the human aspects of what everybody is going through, because again, it affects everybody, not just a particular country, a particular sector, a particular race, gender, or whatever. Yeah. So it's all a kind of a community, I would say. So it's been really good, yeah.
Okay. I read an article by the IMF saying that it was called, I think, the Great Lockdown, and the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. The projected global growth also is supposed to be -3% this year. What does that mean for entrepreneurs and people who are looking to invest? Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the pandemic has really disrupted life, as we know, and many of us we're experiencing real changes in our homes and work life. And let's face it, as an entrepreneur and other entrepreneurs, we're suffering, and some are drastically having to change their business model. Regarding the projection, I actually recently attended the Morningstar webinar where they projected a positive GDP growth rate next year. But then we all have to wait and see how this pans out, if it's going to be positive or not, or we don't know, because everything is all still very muddled up. But we're hoping from most of the seminars I've attended, most of the economists that I follow, they see some growth rate from next year. So fingers crossed, we're looking at that. So regarding those that are looking to invest, I would say they should speak to their advisor or coach. There's no one size fits all. We all have our unique needs. And if you have a fear of investing and lack of confidence and the knowledge to invest, make sure you speak to a coach first to overcome this hurdle. And for those that feel that they are ready to start investing, they should have a portfolio construction on a holistic basis. So they need to start first by analyzing their situational profiling. Where are they at the moment? What is their situation? And then they look at their behavioral biases, because we all have different behavioral biases. Some tend to be more emotional, some more cognitive. They need to work with that with their advisors. And then the next one is to look at their objective. What are their specific goals? And they then need to do a good, robust risk assessment and their constraints because we all have different constraints. We have liquidity constraints, we have time, we have tax, we have legal. So you have to look at the legal aspect of it, and also what are individual unique circumstances. And then all this goes into what we call an investment policy statement, which is used to establish a clear understanding between yourself and your advisor of the investment goals, objectives, and management policies applicable to your investment portfolio. And did you ask about PaySop, how we are doing?
Yeah,
Or?
that would be, because that would interest me also, because I know that you're also providing coaching, right? So somebody
Yeah,
who, for example, if our audience would be interested in working
yeah,
with you,
yeah.
what would they have to do? Because if they said
Mm,
they wanted to actually start this, they want to be empowered by you,
yeah.
and they would like to start a portfolio, what would they
Mm-hmm.
have to do?
So if I just start first, so before I answer that, I would first of all like to acknowledge my team from the Isekan Mannheim Executive MBA, because we all work together on PaySop, and we had to defend in front of the jury of both business schools in Mannheim and in Paris. So it was a good team behind PaySop Invest. So it was not just only me.
Thank you very much, everybody, here.
So regarding PaySop, we do coaching amongst others. So for example, we have a unique solution that integrates the community to build trust and share similar experiences with other women and also men that are looking to empower women in their lives. And we provide personalized coaching to improve financial literacy and confidence. And then the next step would be to have a marketplace and a proprietary platform with 3 clicks so that the women can invest sustainably. And we see all these parts as something that can really, really empower women to become more financially literate and independent. And regarding coaching, this solution that we're proposing is actually needed more than ever, as we have experienced with this COVID-19 pandemic, because in this pandemic, we've seen gender pay gap worsened, and a majority of women actually work in community, administrative, and domestic jobs. And women represent a majority of low-paid workers and part-timers, and in general tend to be laid off in higher rates than men. So in this period, women have a higher risk of even falling into more financial risk and also poverty now and afterwards. So what we've seen for coaching is we've seen an increased number of women that want to become more informed about what is the basics of financial literacy. They want one-to-one advice and comfort and coaching to build their confidence. And also we've seen quite a few number of women coming, asking questions because they're going to get divorced. What do they need to do? Because we've seen like 80% or more of women, after they get divorced, they realize that they haven't been involved in their finances, and they have to start from
zero,
zero, and some it's very, very painful to me to watch sometimes, because I feel everybody needs to be financially independent. I know it's different across cultures and across ethnicities, but there should be some form of independence that a woman should be aiming to attain. And what we also do is we believe in investing sustainably on the long term, because there'll always be market downturns. And what we tell is invest on the longer term, because on average it evens out. And for example, if you look at the robo-advisor market, it was launched after 2008 financial crisis, and they've actually performed very well during the March downturn compared to some benchmarks, proving that this technology is here to stay no matter in what conditions. So I'm actually looking forward, and I'm excited to bringing more women into the investment space via first the community, providing coaching, education, and then ultimately the investment platform, because we should not be giving people platforms and apps if they don't understand the basics of it.
Yes, that's true.
So exactly. So I think have I answered your question though?
I think yes, you have. Yes, you have. So I'm just gonna make sure that we are still in time.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. So basically in Germany right now, they're easing up the lockdown. Shops are beginning to go, to open. At some point in time, the schools are going to open and major businesses are going to open. What is your as a business owner or as an entrepreneur,
Mm.
what is your take on what the next year, 2 years could look like with this in the background? Should
Mm.
one reinvent themselves, reshape their thoughts? Where do you see this as a reset for us to reboot our engine and be more focused? What is your thoughts for the future?
Ooh, the future, if only we could all predict the future.
Predictive analysis.
So from my perspective, I mean, it means that entrepreneurs will have to be more innovative and come up with innovative ways and remain agile in our thinking. And some of us might have to pivot very quickly on our business plans. So what I would say is, it's the thing is, you have to know what your customers need. You have to gain insights and be more agile and ready to innovate. And the world is moving so quickly, and those that are agile will be amongst the ones that will be successful. And we need to prepare our clients emotionally ahead of time and putting contingencies plan in place and be more adaptable when circumstances change. And what I also say is, because regarding people that are they're thinking about their money and thinking about what they need to start doing, like some meaningful actions, is for people to start becoming financially empowered, to start saving and start thinking about investing. Then they should speak to a coach if they have the fear. Because you're only powerless if you believe you're powerless, and building confidence and competence is very, very powerful. So it's important to have an emotional connection with money. You need to know what is important to you, what legacy do you want to leave behind. Are you afraid you run out of money, and what are you concerned about? You also need to understand your assets, your liability, your cash flow. Look at what you own, look at what you owe, how much you're spending, how much do you need to retire, what do you need to do, what do you want to pass down to your kids, your generation. Think about your longevity, your legacy, and act now. So I can talk on the investment side of things, but in general, like I said, we all just need to make sure we're preparing our clients ahead of time and just putting contingency plan in place to make sure we're agile and innovative.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the entrepreneur world is a different one from people like us who have a 9 to 5 job, I would say, because you have to look to see where your next penny is going to come from,
Mhm,
and what the future would be like, especially if you have a family.
mhm.
My last question to you would be, tell us something funny about yourself.
Oh God.
A
um,
quirk, something to leave before we open up for questions.
oh God, I don't know what is funny about myself, to be honest. I think I'm serious most of times, but
What would make
uh,
you laugh on a very good day?
sorry.
What would make you laugh on a nice day?
Or make me laugh on a nice day. Maybe a silly comedy, or my daughter just being very bossy. She's
Oh, she's
extremely
bossy.
bossy. She'll tell
Ah,
you, "Mommy, sit down there. Mommy, watch. Mommy, do this. Mommy, do that." But yeah. So that is it. Yeah.
thank you very much. I'm going to open up for questions. So, everybody, if you have a question that you want to put forward to Rukayat, you can unmute yourself and you can ask, and she can pick this up.
Mhm.
Hello, hi, I'm Debbie. I'm calling from the UK. And I just have a question for the speaker and also the moderator, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
It's centered around the same thing, which is entry. I think the reason why people feel so I work in an insurance industry, and we're on the back foot of innovation or tech in comparison to quite a few industries. We're just right at the right behind. And I think the reason why I think in terms of women and the involvement with tech is centers around accessibility and people feeling, I mean, there was a point the speaker made about having an emotional connection, and the fact that people don't associate tech or being in that world, and the vulnerability that women face, or seeing it as a place that women can develop. I guess this is more for both moderator and the speaker. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? In saying that, you know, it's not really a place for women because we're always, there's the association of emotions, etc., and sort of, I don't know, knowing your place, etc., and seeing where you fit.
So do you want me to answer
Yes,
that?
you go ahead first.
Okay. So for example, now, I mean, when it comes to investments and in tech, yes, you tend to see that lots of people don't see tech and emotions, and people will say, okay, because you're emotional, don't deal with tech. But then when the thing about the beauty about tech is we should not just leave everything to tech. There should be some hybrid parts of it, which is some human connection to it as well. So if you look at, for example, for robo-advisors, what robo-advisors tend to do is to remove the emotional, the behavioral biases that deals with emotion into it. They do that, but then I think looking at the way forward now, it is best to have a hybrid model where you kind of understand your clients at the beginning when they go onto your robo-advisor platform. They do the robust risk profiling to say if they're emotional or cognitive. If they're emotional, then during, for example, market downturns and lots of volatility, there is going to be some form of hyper-personalization. So the robo-advisors that actually did better in the downturns were the ones that actually had this hyper-personalization communication with their clients. So it's not just only women that's emotional, men are emotional as well. But then the status quo is that mostly women are emotional.
Yeah.
So what we then look at is to mirror the behavioral finances that would help us to identify our clients and make sure they're not missing out on investing in technology because they think because they're emotional, they shouldn't. Again, it comes into having a good coaching to make sure this confidence and the education aspects kind of help to walk through the emotions when it comes to investing in technology. So you have to know the knowledge, and once you have the knowledge, you become a bit more rational to then invest. But then if you cannot, then there's a way to mitigate this and help more women towards investing as opposed to just saying, oh, you're too emotional, you don't need to invest. So I hope I answered your question correctly.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was kind of towards where I was steering. Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
well, I won't really add much to that because I think from the financial perspective, yes, of course, we're always seen as emotional, not that it's necessarily a bad thing. And when you talk about emotion and tech, I think what is important is to know that tech is an enabler. It is not the be all end all. It is an enabler of either possibilities that you can use. So let's look at basic tech, your telephone. Your telephone enables you to do a whole lot more. You have your app on there. And if you understand how the app works, I don't have to ask anybody. I'm also independent of that. And pretty much apps are built today to make sure that it's intuitive, you know exactly what to do. And maybe this is the low technology that you have to bring down to also educate or to coach the people who are scared of actually stepping towards this technology.
Thank you. Thanks. That was a robust answer from both people. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? I saw that there was a question in the chat. This was by Uwe. He says, family and entrepreneurship is possible. I do have 3 kids and an entrepreneur. Okay, so it wasn't a question, it was just a comment.
It was just a comment, yeah.
Thank you very much. Any more questions to Rukayat?
Hi, this is Tolu. Can you hear me?
Hi, Tolu. Yes, we can.
Hi. So I have a question. I wonder, so I joined a little bit late, so it could be that you've already addressed what I'm going to ask, but I'm wondering, did you used to work in a 9-to-5, and did you combine your 9-to-5 with entrepreneurship? So I do realize that if you did, that's probably not something you can answer in 2 minutes, but it would be nice if you could maybe share some insights. So
I had a 9 to 5 since 2006 till 2018. And yes, I was working 9 to 5, even longer in investment banking. It was very, very long hours when I first started. And I started combining talking to people and providing coaching on a pro bono basis when I was in London while I was still working. So I was doing this in parallel because this was what I thought was really needed, and it was a passion of mine. And I clearly saw the problem. And moving to Germany now, because I'm in Germany now, I'm just finishing up with my executive MBA at ISEC and Mannheim Business Schools, as I mentioned earlier. And now starting with the pace up startup to just bring everything together and make sure we provide this solution to women. So yes, I was working alongside my 9 to 5 when I was in London. So I was in London working between 2006 to 2018 before I moved down to Germany. And did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have another question. I have a question from Anna. What should people be investing in the long term? How should asset classes change? Additionally, if you don't have a pension or life insurance, is this something women should consider?
So again, there is no broad answer for me to say what you should be investing in. As I mentioned earlier during the call regarding you need to have your own, it has to be holistic to you. You need to have your own portfolio construction and investment policy statement that is specific and unique to you because you have a different goal as opposed to someone else. It can be your goal is to buy a house, the goal is to send your kids to school, the goal is for retirement. So all these goals are that you need to do a robust risk assessment because your willingness to invest might be different from your ability to invest. So this is where the risk assessment is very, very important. So we're not telling people to go and invest in something that they cannot afford to invest into. And also you have to look at your constraints. So you have to look at your liquidity. Do you have an emergency fund, emergency buffer? What is the excess that you can use to start investing now? Do you have more money coming in than going out? What is your time horizon? Is it short? Is it long? What are your tax circumstances? All this goes into what we call an investment policy statement, and it helps you to understand what kind of asset classes you should be investing in because different asset classes have different risk and return profile. So from having an IPS with a financial advisor, your financial advisor will be able to tell you this is what you need to do. So not only for financial products, but also non-financial products like real estate as well. So you need to be looking at diversifying your portfolio across asset classes, but you have to make sure you work with someone to create this at the beginning. And regarding if you don't have a pension or life insurance, is this something women should consider? You should have a pension. It is really, really important to have a pension. Some women rely on state pensions, which should not be so. If you have a state pension, it's good, but try to have your own private pension as well, because state pension, if you take time off work, then you're not putting into the pension. And at the end of the day, when it's time for you to retire, you're not going to get the full amount of pension back because you're taking time off work, you're probably earning less, or you're in a lower paying job. But if you're in a higher paying job, you have a good pension plan, that is fantastic. Have your state pension and have your private pension. That is what I always advocate for women because we're living longer, right? And we don't want to outlive our assets because if you rely on your partner's pension, your partner might die before you do, and your partner's pension is not transferable to you. So you have to make sure you have your own private pension. Start looking into that in addition to the state pension that you are, that you are eligible for. And life insurance is independence. It's unique. So it's up to you to have a life insurance. It's up to you not to have a life insurance. So again, you have to talk to your financial advisor to see whether taking out a life insurance is in your best interest or not. We can see lots of insurances, actually, they have, because of the negative interest rates, the returns on them are not really good at the moment, and most of them are actually partnering and investing money to make sure they have a higher return and on the longer term when it's time for the people to get the money out. So again, talk to a financial advisor to go through all the basics with you. That's what I would say. I hope that helps. I hope that helps, Amma. Thank you.
So, yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Okay. Another question.
So you can see it, right? Yeah.
Have you considered also crypto assets, STOs, cryptocurrencies in our midterm thoughts? Okay, so I haven't considered that. We want to start out at the beginning with just very liquid exchange traded funds. So these are funds that are traded on the exchange and they are liquid. Not all of them are liquid, but because they trade, they track the index funds, you can kind of go in and exit very quickly. And then it depends on the expense ratio as what they are paying. Most of it are very liquid to come out of, most of them are not. But then we're starting out with this because we realize that women have lower assets to start out first with, and their risk ability might not be as high as the risk ability of men that earn more. So we're looking at the ETF to start to build up their assets gradually and their wealth. And then once time goes on, we check their investment policy statements and say, okay, now it's time to start looking at other asset classes, like crypto, more, more riskier asset classes. And from there, then we'll take it, but we're not starting with, we haven't considered crypto assets at all. It's just ETFs to get women on board, because women are not they're not investing. Most of them are not investing at all. For example, in Germany, only 18% of women invest. In the UK, it's only about 21% of women. We actually have more women in the UK investing compared to Germany. So it's to start gradually, make sure it's a liquid portfolio for them to get in and out. But then again, it depends on each individual circumstances. Some women will be richer, some women will not be, but we'll look at the richer ones and see whether they can take bigger risk compared to those that don't have the liquidity. I hope that answers your question, Uwe. So typing.
So do we have any more questions? So if there are no more questions, I would like to say a very big thank you to Rukayat for helping us kick off this Bytes and Banter by Women in Tech Africa. It was very nice to have you and listen to your expertise. And basically, you can look at her website and get more information about Pace Up Invest. I'm sure, I think your contact details are also on the website, so they can reach out to you. So if you have any questions in that area, please reach out to her. We should be back in 2 weeks with a new guest. Please stay tuned. Thank you, everybody, for taking part, and I wish you a wonderful evening. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.